Hello everyone and welcome to my oil painting class. And today we are painting Fountains Abbey ruins. We've got that lovely arch and the view through it. Um, part of the grass we see here would have been an old church main nave. I think the altar would have been there. We can see just about a little platform of the abbey. I'm really interested in seeing how we can paint contrast light today. So view through the arch, view through this almost a darker tunnel, through the shadows, and seeing the lovely, beautiful remains of the abbey behind. I'd like to do a black and white study as well first, and then we'll progress exploring the color, painting on an ochre background. I mixed acrylics. I mixed white, ochre, and a little bit of violet to make this acrylic. Sorry, to make the prime color. It will support the colors of our stone, and the overall kind of painting will have extra glow of warmth. So let's explore some of the thinner layers today as well in our applications, and see if we can preserve some of that ochre through. I also have a piece of cloth. You can also use a sponge as an alternative, or a large brush, or a bit of both. And I have a little wooden wedge so I can scratch the surface as well, and perhaps explore some of the texture of the stone. Right, so I'll talk you through the colors later on, but first we'll just need some white and black. I'm going to be using some Payne's grey. I've got some fresh white for maybe for my other colors, so I just put a little bit of extra white to help myself not to stretch out too fast so they're too close together. Right, so for my little study, my tonal plan, I can work in a number of tones, but I'd like to start with something basic. I'd like to start perhaps, I'll do a little grid here, perhaps a white, couple of tones of medium darkness, and a couple of tones of kind of darks. So my blacks, maybe my couple of medium tones. Now, my medium tone's already here. Maybe the darker version of it is already here. So in a way, I can think of anything what's going to be white and anything's going to be black. I haven't got quite a lot of black here, and I haven't got just a fresh white either. The sky has a lot of paler colors, and so is the path. So it's probably some light on the side of this wall. So those are going to be my probably an off-white colors. Okay. My main darkness, which is not going to be black, but it's probably going to stay somewhere just off that black. So that's why I thought if I were to divide those areas, I'm in a way going to be using the three tones between the black and solid white. So let's give that one a go. Because my medium gray background is already here, I can start always lighter tones, always darker ones. I'm going to start with the lighter one. I'm going to load my brush with a bit of tips, some white, and a little bit of black. Now, let's make it quite a pale color. Okay. I'm going to test it here. Okay, just about showing lighter version of my light. Okay, so it's not quite a white one. You can just about see it there. Maybe I should have put it with a darker marker pen here. So this is my white. My other tones are coming up here. Right, so just looking very simply at our photograph, just simplifying the shapes. Can I find this odd shape of an oval, which is reaching out to a little bit of vertical lines, somewhere not quite right at the top of the picture, somewhere midway. If we'll get the wrong positioning of it, it doesn't matter. This will be something for us to consider for improving that silhouette, kind of moving things about after. Okay, so I've got that shape. I'm looking for that shape. I'm looking for an approximate location of it. I can see it's slightly closer to the left and to the right. And the bottom of it, I can see a lovely, again, I don't have to work it out yet, but some sort of pattern of light. So we can see tiny little windows there, perhaps a bigger window. Okay, maybe my pointy top for the arch. Main glass window, which would have been beautiful stained glass somewhere there. So just a pattern of light and dark so far. I can also see light on the wall. Okay, can I do it as a big shape? I'm looking for those almost abstract patterns of light. And then from there, I can see my light for the path. Okay, and it's coming somewhere this way. And then there is a shadow from the wall. And I actually want to make this shadow just a little more longer. So I might make it change slightly its direction. So that's might be my shape here. The shadow is going a little bit more straighter towards us on the photograph, but I think for composition purposes, if I were to change it a little bit, it's not going to be a big issue there. Okay, so something like that as my first light. There is a tiny bit of a blue light coming through on the side. Now it's up to you if you want to use it. I think I'm just going to carry on showing like we have more wall, and then there is a little gap. I think I'm going to keep it as it is. Okay, good. Next one. I'm considering the other three shapes. All the stonework of the archway. Okay, there are varieties of color in there. There are subtones in there, but overall it stands out as a big shape. There is a tone and a shape of the Abbey ruins in the distance. Okay, that's again, you've got sub darknesses, sub highlights. But overall, if we were to squint our eyes, we see it more or less together. And there is a pattern, a shape of grass of that lawn, which is slightly lighter. So if I were to squint my eyes, I need to make a decision if my ruins of the abbey at the back is going to be darker or lighter in comparison to the archway. Because it's further away, I'm going to make that decision that's going to be slightly lighter. Now, against the shape, the darkness here, we can see that be slightly lighter here. The archway is slightly darker here. That gives me that kind of decision making. there. Here we have a highlight, so it's harder to decide what's happened there. So it's possibly that slight variation is, if I would have compared this part of the wall to this one, they might have been quite similar. But I'm going to make a conscious decision for the distant ruins to be darker, to be slightly lighter. So I'm going to leave the current dark gray for the distant Abbey. Okay, silhouette. So I need to make a slightly lighter gray for my grass and a slightly darker shape for the archway. So let's make a pattern of gray for the grass. So I need to be slightly darker. Okay, and let's check it. Maybe it looks quite dark, but let's just check against the, okay, it's slightly lighter, maybe tiny bit more lighter. That's it. So my grass, there is a little shadow as well on the grass. I might leave that one out. I think that will be a good opportunity for me to spot that. Okay. Just tiny bit lighter here. I'm going to, just for the grid, for my little tonal grid here, I'll make a slightly darker gray here, which is the darkness I have on my current board. So the Abbey stays where it is. So if I needed to touch anything, paint it back. Actually, it's come out a little bit darker than. Okay. Tiny bit lighter. That's better. So I can adjust that one just tiny bit lighter. This is more of a checking on the darkness rather than correcting my picture. Okay. And I need to mix a tiny bit more darker tone. I think I might have to have another box for black. Okay, if that is going to be my black, which I'm not going to use much, can I use something in between for my darker gray? Okay, tiny bit more darker. Okay, that's better. So I actually ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4 tones between my white and black. And this is going to be all of this area. Okay, my brush hasn't got an even gray on it, so I just need to mix it. Okay. This is going to be the end of my picture. And just double check I've got a similar mixture again to go around and create my shadow for the arch. Okay, I think that's where it's gonna stop. Okay, that's good, and that's going to be somewhere here. Shadow all together here as well. And if I really wanted to have a little extra black involved, okay, I can use a little bit of it to show some of the perspectives of the archway details, those stone rows of stone, yeah, coming out from here. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of the details of the outer layer of the arch. Just a little bit of, just a hint on that extra depth. There's a lovely little, so those are more details, but they're within our darker main shadow. Okay, I can see that space somewhere here. Gives it a little bit more character. Gives us a little bit more where our interest points are going to be as well. Okay. Good. So that's an overall layout of my painting. Now, by doing this, it gives me an opportunity to judge if I need to make any adjustments. I've already made my distant Abbey slightly bigger, just tiny bit bigger than what's probably is on the photograph. I think maybe just by this wall, maybe more or less the same. But what I'd like to propose is to make it slightly closer to us, because I think, first of all, the camera just plays tricks on seeing shapes slightly different to what they are. It's trying to fit loads of things in. But also, I don't want to have too much sky and too much pathway here. That lovely, exciting viewpoint is kind of disappearing. So my plan is to drop my Abbey a little bit low, the distant one, a little bit lower here. Okay. So I'm just using the tone for the distant Abbey. Just going to paint over the windows because they just need to be moved a little bit. And I'm going to raise the height of my buildings here as well. Not talking about a huge amount, but it will be significant enough. Okay. Okay, I can paint back some of the windows. But it's given me an opportunity to make that decision and to see if I like it. Yeah. If I don't like it, I can stick to original idea and stay more with the proportions of the photograph. But I think that will be a little bit more exciting. Okay. My white behind this arch doesn't come out very fresh, but that's okay. Some there. And maybe even tiny bit of trees behind somewhere there. It doesn't have to be trees, I think just the main silhouette of overall space is pretty good there. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll just put a little block of fresher white. I think it's a harder paint. Just want to have a tiny bit of freshness in there of white. Okay, that's better. Good. So we're bringing the view a bit more closer to us, making that interest point a little bit more exciting. Now, if needed, I can move to have a little bit more space at the back. I can move tiny bit my arch, tiny bit more away. Yeah, kind of expand it tiny bit more wider, just to fit it in. But I think it's probably more or less going to be fine with actual proportions of the arch. Good. I'm happy with that. And interesting to see that the light shape of the wall and the path link together, but it doesn't stop us seeing that that is the wall and that is the path. Yeah, we will have different colors here on our large painting. However, they will be both warm, so we might need to differentiate it any other way, or tiny change darkness in there when we come close to it. So they're not going to actually clash. But here they're working pretty well. Right. And let's get started on our actual painting. I'm going to sketch with a little bit of diluted violet. Let's put some tips there first. Okay. And let's plan the same shapes as we started for our little sketch. I worked from the big light of the archway, and let's tweak its position. Let's put it approximately a little bit harder to do it on a larger scale than on a smaller proportion sketch, but let's give that one a go. We're going to remember that the left-hand side wall is going to be narrower. The right-hand side wall will be slightly wider. So I might give myself an approximate locations here. Okay. I need to plan. Okay, so my white is going to be my white part of the arch opening is going to be somewhere here. But I need to make sure that my kind of ceiling of the roof of the arch, we see that we have got some space for that. Okay. Might need to shrink that space, so I'm not going to lose it on the path. So maybe I'll lift it up a little bit. Okay. And maybe it will lift the opening for the arch as well. If possible, try not to be too precise. Oh, I need to work out this perfect oval right now. And then in 5-10 minutes, we'll spot that there are some issues, things need to be moved about, things are not quite in the right place or the wrong proportions. So I prefer to do it quickly and approximately without spending too much time, without worrying about it too much. Maybe my space is not quite right. I think it might need to be wider. Doesn't quite fit my lines here for the walls. But before I go any further, I'd like to take my walls down. Now, this wall is more of a vertical. This one got a slight angle to it, not because it's collapsing, but because the camera, when I photographed it, picked up a third point of perspective to show that extra height. But it's quite a tall arch. I'm almost looking up, so the camera picked up that third point of perspective. When one line is almost straight, another one gently leaning towards the left. So that's open. We'll open the space a little bit more. I am leaning it out, but I think my camera doesn't quite picking it up. Okay, so if I'll keep that one there, but wipe this one out. So we're only talking about a small angle. If you keep both lines straight, it wouldn't be a problem either. It would be fine. And what I'm gonna do next, I'm going to help myself with some more directional lines. Like here on the shadow, I put some of those diagonals to show what's under a particular layer of stone. So we've got a stone which stands out for decorative purposes, and we see it from underneath. So that's one somewhere there. There's almost a straight line here as well for some light. Okay, I might just even do a little shade in there just to see it better. And let's see, can spot the column here. Might hold on. Okay, that one's there. And that one I need to go. A little more down there. And by the time it's leaning, okay, maybe that will be, maybe this one is just tiny bit leaning out as well. Leaning both of them, just tiny leaning towards the center. Okay. So I have the width of that space here. Looking for directions of the stones for the little capital, if it would have been a wide column, or direction of the stones. And I think that one, that's where this shape is coming up. Okay. So they're parallel, one is a bit bigger, one is a bit smaller. They shadow in each other. Okay. Still not finally decided it's going to remain as it is, or if any adjustments needs making. I can put the wall width a bit more here. And there is a column stand. I think it just looks too leaning out too much. I think I might have to straighten it a little bit up. So then this could lean a little bit more inwards as well. Not as steep. Okay, this lovely column is here. And I'm going to balance it back with its capital. Got this lovely exciting shape, corners. So I've got an uneven box I'm painting, kind of drawing. So I've got the front side of it. I've got the left side of it and what sits above it. Okay, and then there is a continuing arch, which is going over this way. Okay. But it will be, most of it will be hidden in our stonework, so this is more for understanding what happens to the interior here. Okay. I think I'm reasonably happy with that for now. I'll find out if I am very happy with it or not, if anything else needs tweaking, only once I've done my buildings behind. Right, I can remove now this supportive line, which was helping me with symmetry. Right, so left-hand side wall goes all the way down, so I can happily continue that. And left-hand side wall stops a bit earlier, but I'm going to find the lawn first before I paint that base where the arch is stopping, meeting them pathway. Now to do that, I need to do the lawn. To do the lawn, I need to find the placement for my Abbey ruins. So I'm going to find out that line, that almost horizontal line, or at least I will be drawing it horizontal, where it's going to be. I think I'm just going to drop it tiny bit lower. Okay, somewhere here. Let's test it out. Let's test all of the buildings coming together for the height. I think maybe somewhere about here. Okay, that's overall. They might be going down and up, but this is going to stay here. And this one part of the nearest wall to us, that could come up closer. Okay. And from knowing that, I can then decide where my lawn is going to be and connect it approximate diagonal. You can put something against it and find that exact diagonal, but we don't have to have the exact diagonal. Depends how much space you have, depends the proportion of your painting surface. Okay, if I were to put it that way, I can then paint my maybe tiny bit more lower. Then I can add the base for the arch where it stands on, and perhaps where it stops, so just on the corner of my column here, and send it that way. Okay. I'll have a little step here. So these lines could be in line, the corners, but they don't have to be perfectly in line. Sometimes they just, I think they might be just the bottom one just tiny bit towards the left. So we see that connection now. Okay, the column stands there. Looks like it's a little bit still leaning. I might have to make it just less falling down. Just feels like it's leaning a bit too much to me. I have to adjust it for calmer option. And then all of these ones will just need to be adjusted as well. Again, it's good to do it now rather than start it in color. And then changing our mind. Okay, that's a bit more calmer, that's better. There we go. Done there. And I'm just going to double check my oval here. It's not overly leaning in. Then this one is just going straight. It doesn't need to lean in. And then that one stays there. I think that's better as well. Okay. Now let's test placing the runes at the back. Okay, big shape here first. Let's make it less perfect at the top. Okay, there might be some humps and bumps over. Okay, so right here, maybe this line is not going to be so wide, so I can actually gain some building space. And find a little bit of area for my windows. I think that's a way too wide line to paint after. Will be quite hard, so I just need a thinner paint, more diluted paint. Okay, somewhere there. Somewhere there. And then my arch. Okay. This building is not quite a perfectly straight one either. The arch is just partially hiding behind the corner, so symmetrically. Okay, so that's might be somewhere there. That was my line of symmetry to give myself a reference. And I'm going to lose a little bit of the buildings here on the side. Or I could have shrunk the height of the buildings and turn them proportionally slightly smaller. I think I'm going to stay there. Can I reduce? Can I move anything else over before I make that decision? I think I can make my opening of the arch tiny bit more further out. So if it finishes here, and then I could have just a little bit extra space Okay. Do all sorts of things for improving the final outcome. If you are happy with your arch size and you've decided to maybe not make that ruin so tall, or deliberately made it more in proportion to the photo, that's absolutely fine. I'm gonna tweak this shape and maybe make the proportion of this arch slightly smaller, so then I can fit a little bit more. I think that pointy corner is actually, we see less of it, that's better. So then it stays, okay, smaller size. And then the building next to it, connecting part is going to be somewhere here. Okay, that's a bit better. And then I can decide on a couple of windows. And actually part of the building here, I'll continue my straight line horizontally. It's on the left, on the right hand side, just tiny, it's going to drop towards us. Okay, got some cloisters here. Right, so I'm going just to adjust my interior here. That's all good. I'm just going to tweak that. The width of the wall, can I get away with the reduced size of the arch? Just going to make sure it's straight as I had it in my last version. Okay, that's working. That's working. That's okay. That's just the border. I could move the column tiny bit more out. Okay. Not huge difference. I think it just doesn't press too much. Not fighting for the space here. Okay, that's better. I'm happy with that. Right, anything else here? I think I can put tiny bit of directions of my stones. For example, inside of the arch. These are easier to start with. Okay, now this is actually much lower. It's not next to the column, it's a little bit lower. It's here. It's about somewhere here. Although there is a little indent of missing stone. So I'm interested into some of the direction of the stone here. So not particular widths between my lines, more the directions. Again, how the direction is changing. as we're going through the arch. Okay. And what happens to the stone wall here? Now, if I find a line, perhaps on this wall, where I can see the gap, the kind of the mortar area between the stones is looking as a straight line. I think it's more or less on my line where the Abbey ruin meets the grass, or just tiny, tiny bit above it. So I think that will be a straight line. Anything above it's going to start going that way. Now this side's going to go quite sharply steep. And this is going to be sharply steep that way. And the other side is a little bit less steeper. Okay, we just need to meet those lines the same, so that should be more or less the same. Good. And these ones need to be in line, something between here and that straight line here. And then between this one and that line. Okay, that goes that way. Okay, a bit of a zebra, but gives us the directions. It gives us directions and understanding of space. Okay, there's a little indent as well on the wall. Elsewhere here, that's what I was trying to show in the shadow. Will give us a lovely reference, and as well that's going to be part of the wall which will have a highlight. So actually I'm spotting it now. It might have a slight angle for that line. So then that shadow and that light is not just straight as I've done it on my picture there, but actually it will have a little more of a dynamic development. So this wall could go slightly straighter. Again, all these little tweaks are important for our upcoming shapes there. Right, so if I don't bring those lines, nothing's going to be wrong. Okay, that's more straight. Okay. Good, I'm happy with that. I'll drop this line a tiny bit further back. Again, it's not going to make a big difference, but I think it will show a little extra. There is a line for the restored part of the altar, but there is more space behind. There's another big space, so I'll leave it a little further back to show that. Okay. Good. Good. Right, now let's pick up a bigger brush and let's start painting our highlights. So I'm going to start with my sky and then progress into my path and the highlight on the wall, similarly to what we've done on our tonal sketch. So our sky need to be lighter, so it's not as white. Yeah, it's something a little bit off white. It could have a little bit of extra blue, but we also can balance it out with some extra clouds. So anything here or there, those two tones will be good, and then the white will come in there as well. So on my palettes, yeah, I forgot to tell you my colors. I have some white, buff titanium, ochre, Naples yellow, cadmium red, magenta, or anything pinky red, violet, ultramarine, cerulean blue, emerald green, and that was my paint grain, some more white. So now I need my oil and some white, some fresh white. You know what, I might mix it here close to my blues. Get a little bit more oil to soften my thick white. I want to make sure I have enough because it's a reasonably big area. I don't want it to be too runny, but it needs to get that lovely consistency of paint. If it's too thick and it's not mixed well, it's not going to mix well with our color. Right, next one, I'm going to go for cerulean blue. Small amount, it will be quite strong and dark. Otherwise, tiny bit more white, so I'm just getting that nice proportion of it. I'm going to start with cerulean blue, and then I'm going to add some ultramarine to that. So let's find this shape here first. Now, our stones are not perfect, so if I'm painting more of an even oval, I will then, only once I'm ready with, and I'm happy with that, I can then almost paint little gaps or little teeth here, whichever you want to call them. So little gaps between the stone. It might look odd first because we haven't got anything above, but eventually those spaces might be quite nice. I'm going to try not to make them too regular, maybe different gaps. If your violet is smudging like mine, just persevere violet from the outlines. Just persevere mingling them a little bit more so then it doesn't make it stand out. Okay, I think it's time for me to lift my board a little bit higher so it's stop reflecting it for you. Right, so my cerulean blue could also be slightly more intensified, getting a tiny bit more darkness into that. I want to have a little more of it introduced, and perhaps a small amount of ultramarine. That's quite powerful. I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm going to add a little more white to it again. And there is more ultramarine a little here at the top. Okay, I need to paint my gaps between the stones. I'm painting them deliberately bigger because I can then shrink them when I start painting the stone. But I wanted to have that unity of color, so if earlier color there is different, I just want to connect it. So this darkness is going to be here next to the lighter fluffy white cloud, and also it's because it's the highest one away from horizon. But we can see some whispery clouds going this way, and then there's a little bit of that darkness again, a slightly lighter version, but reasonably dark sky close here, showing it's a lovely sunny day. We're seeing the big open sky. Can put more cerulean in there. Maybe less ultramarine, more cerulean. Okay, my finally paint has started to mix better. Okay, painting around the arch. I'm going to leave out the clouds first. Want to establish overall shapes. Maybe a hint of the light there. And I need some paler blue in the gaps. So I'm going to wipe my brush, have some fresher white, mix it in the corner with my current blue, that mixture of ultramarine and cerulean blue. Okay, and that paler color could start be the base of my clouds. Okay. They're quite whispery, they're quite soft. If you end up with 7 solid whites, partially solid, that'd be fine. Okay, so these are lovely and whispery ones. So they merge and smudge well with the blues we just applied. And there's some more solid white, just off-white clouds. I'm gonna go for a little bit more thicker paint there. Perhaps somewhere here. Again, I'm still coming close and identifying the silhouette of the Abbey. Okay, if it's too white, I can always tone it down. Okay, so tone it, sorry, make it slightly darker. Okay. And a little more fresher whites, perhaps somewhere here. If the shape doesn't look right, looks like it's got almost a hat over the building, perhaps I'll stretch it out under the archway, or I'll paint it first and then evaluate, perhaps remove some of it, perhaps relocate, perhaps just paint a flatter sky. It needs to work with our space, so I'm not too sure if I like that gap here. That might just go there, maybe something else. Okay, so we've got a bit of a drama in the sky already. Maybe some extra fresh white will come here as well. It's good the picture doesn't reflect for the screen, but it reflects for me, so I need to be patient and keep looking at the angle which doesn't reflect for me. Okay, that's fine. If you're struggling with your surface reflecting, try to keep it as vertical as you can. Then it will be picking up less light. Okay, something there. And a tiny bit of a dab of blue. If you want to repaint anything, for example, I want to have a little bit more blue here. I have to make my darkness of the blue stronger to arrive to halfway through its darkness, because there's so much white in there. It just wouldn't sit. Okay, finally it started to allow that darkness to settle. Okay, that's better. Again, anything else for under the archway? I'm going to keep the pale blues simplified. And I'm also going to paint the rest of the windows. Okay, there's some trees here as well. I'm going to paint the windows, the surface of the sky I can see through slightly larger, because when I start painting my stonework, it will shrink it. So I prefer to paint it bigger rather than lose the actual proportion of my windows. Now the violet outline of the windows makes the space behind them darker, so I'm persevering, picking up fresh paint. Okay. And okay, this one could be just a little lower. And looking at the spaces for the windows, they just look a little bit more dull. So perhaps a fresh white that's better already, yeah? Just sharpens the contrast. There might be a cloud. If there is a cloud here, maybe I'll sharpen that one up. That will start corresponding to that cloud here as well. Otherwise, it's just all super dull and a bit boring. Okay, so that might be something there. And the others ones don't look too the same, doesn't look too simple. Okay, just overdone that. Let's bring that color back. Got like that dynamics. I didn't want it to be all the same. Okay. Good. Good, good, good. Anything else? Flatter surface. And then a bit of blue coming stronger. Just before I stop, I want to double check that I don't need to come back to it, or if not, coming back too much. Okay, that's fine. Right, so we can spend more time, we can spend a bit less time. Ideally, once we've got the outline, kind of overall shapes built in this light color, we can tweak it after. What we can't tweak is the borders. So if you put in a white cloud next to the borders, you can put more thicker layers over it, but not on the silhouette lines. So you can tweak the sky, but maybe not where it's bordering with other shapes. Right, so I'm going to let this one be for now. And let's have a look at our other light for the path. Now, in comparison to the sky, this is much more flat surface. There's a little variety of light. I think there's a bit more light somewhere here, more central low area, and it's getting tiny bit more darker further away. Same with the wall here. We have a slightly lighter tone here and a little bit more orangey darker tone higher up. These are slightly different. The wall is tiny bit more darker. So I'm going to use the same brush, perhaps just give it a quick wash, just a very quick, so there wouldn't be any big volume of blue. If there is some white left, some paler color left, that's fine. So again, I'll need some white. If you've got that your buff titanium, that will be a good color to start with. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna test it against my surface here. I think that will be a good color for the middle here. More or less direct buff titanium working for me. Okay. I didn't draw my shadow here from the column, which I will do now. I'll put it a little bit higher. Tiny bit more oil, so it's actually sliding in this shape. So I'll put tiny bit more higher as well, tiny bit more further out. Okay, just improving my drawing. Now I'm seeing the shapes better. Okay, so that stays there. This comes up here. I don't like the diagonal going right next to the corner of my line. So if I'll just drop it a little lower, that's better. So it doesn't clash to a point. Okay. Now, next one, I can or use my background color, my ochre, and dilute my buff titanium, yeah, to a bit more of a transparent layer. Yeah, so it's that, that's like actually it's working there. It's quite matte, it's quite thick with white buff titanium, so I will add more ochre to that. So my initial thought that I can make it a little more transparent is not happening. Okay, a bit more ochre there. And we can have a blend of color together. If you didn't have buff titanium, you can mix ochre and extra white, perhaps with a tiny dab of violet. But it's a good color to have, a very easy light in place. Okay, so I just mingled it here. Can I bring a little bit of that warmth of ochre slightly more here as well? Yeah, of course. That will be quite nice to have that variety. I will keep more lighter tone next to the wall, so it just connects. I'll have that contrast slightly sharper. Okay, I think that's okay. There were also some stonework on the pavement, on the grass. Some of the old burials, some of them bishops, stone plates were there. So I might, while I've got this color, put maybe a couple of elements of light, possibly correspond to some of those graves, tombstones. If I paint my grass and I go over it and it just will be too much, that little extra detail, I'll get rid of it. Yeah, but while I'm on this color, you can see the base of the altar there. Good for me to keep that color in place while I have it. I can see a little bit of light, of a similar light on the corner here. It might be quite a good contrast, just popping out against the darker green shadow. as well. Okay. And now let's mix that highlight for the wall. So I'll keep the same two colors, my buff titanium and ochre, and I'll use a small amount of cadmium red, very small amount. I'll top up my ochre, a very small amount of cadmium red, so just to have that little orangey hint. Okay, so it looks quite similar, different but similar, close to the tones. Okay, I quite like leaving partially smudged outline from my violet. It might show a little bit of a mockier stone, a little extra contrast as well. Okay, maybe following some of the mortar as well might be a good idea to show some graphics of the painting. Okay, and the higher I'm gonna go, the darker my orangey color will become. Okay. So let's mix a little bit more red with a tiny bit more ochre. Okay, still need to remain reasonably light. I think that's a good tone. That's a good color as well. It's a good darkness. And I'm going to bring it a little bit into the lower layers, almost like painting this individual stones. I just leave part of that mortar feel for it from the outlines. Okay, and where this one is, it might not be quite the right darkness yet, but I think I just wanted to see the connection. I'll just make it a tiny bit more darker to see where this one going. And I think that's where this one's gonna go lower. Okay. So the highlights on my stone are finishing approximately here. Okay, gone full dark. Now I've got some Naples yellow. I think it might go a little bit on my path or a little bit on my stonework. Once I placed all my shadows, I'll know how much of that color I'll need. I'll evaluate it. And maybe in small quantities it will come up some texture on the stone wall. I'll do a tiny little sample of it, so if it's a direct Naples yellow, this might just show the mortar of the stone. Yeah, it's just a good color without much mixing. It will create little nuances for us. Okay, I'll just do like a little reminder for later of how much or how powerful it could be. For the path, if I were to use it, I'll probably use it with some extra white or buff titanium. Probably with buff titanium, so it's less powerful yellow. but that golden qualities of shine, of sunny surface. I think that's looking more exciting. Although it's harder to see on the screen, the surface of the painting is changing. Okay. Lovely. Let's again clean my brush. And let's work for some greens as they are next in darkness tone as we're approaching. Right, without washing my brush, I'm going to work into my lawn, into my grasses. Now, if I were to look for my grey pattern, so that was my next darkness. So we worked through some of these. We're working through some, we're coming close here. So having those yellows, buff titanium on my brush will be all good. Can use tiny bit more ochre and small amount of emerald green. Okay, we want to have a lovely sunny green. If your ochre makes it a little bit too dull, maybe Naples yellow or just fresh cadmium yellow will be good. I know I haven't squeezed it, that might be a little bit too bright. But if needed, we can use that. So let's place it. Okay, there. I think my tone is more or less right for the green, which will be a similar darkness as my ochre primer. Okay. I'm going to leave a little bit of space for the shadow here. I'm liking the picture as it is now, although we haven't got much darkness. I think the atmosphere of that volume of light and medium tones is quite exciting. Okay, so this is quite a plain grass color. To make it slightly different, I can go for a deeper green, just using a little more stronger pigment from emerald green, a little bit more paint from ochre. Okay, and perhaps next to the little shapes of the altar's base or some of those gravestones, just sharpening them up a little bit. I might even tiny bit more darker for the area close to me. If it feels not darker, but I don't want not dark enough, but I don't want it to be too green, I can use a tiniest dab of violet. That just makes my green less emerald, but a little bit more duller, and darkness comes in beautifully. Okay, it might be just a little sharpness, and I think that will be the color of my shadow. I'm going to use, if not the same, similar angle for the shadow here. Maybe similar. If it's changed differently, it might be because there might be a different wall. Usually the light is has a similar angle. I think again maybe my camera is playing up here with an illusion. Usually if we have the same source of light, which is the sun, we should have the same direction of shadows. unless we're exaggerating it deliberately. So my shadow green was made from a tiny bit of extra violet with emerald green and ochre. Okay. I might also plan a little shadow, and I think it's there, but we don't see it as sharp, right at the back, next to the Abbey. So the Abbey wall will cast a shadow there as well. So I think it wouldn't be a big issue if I increase its volume. Okay. Good. Now this shadow on the grass also tells me that there will be a shadow on my pavement, which I've forgotten. It's slightly lighter here. This shadow is much solid because it's right next to us. That shadow might be from a very tall tower, part of the collapsed wall. This might be meters away, maybe 20 meters, 30 meters away. So its darkness is less in comparison to this shadow in front of us. So while I've spotted it, I'm going to come back to it and see if I can mix a similar color. Now this color will be going, so we'll change to its darkness, so we don't have to match that color, but I think it's will be something similar. So I'm using a bit of ochre, a little bit of violet, a little bit of buff titanium, so it's kind of a grayish ochre color. And let's just paint this over. Tiny bit more of the violet. I want to have a flat color, so ideally if I would have left it out, it would have been easier for me to just insert that little pattern of color as a extra shadow. Okay, it's okay to have softer borders, maybe not overly soft, but they will be softer because the building is further away. I'm not quite happy with its shape, so let's just move it. That's better, something there. And I need to make sure it's flat. So if I'm lifting previous layer, I need to smudge it well so it's not having any patches on it. Okay, that's better. Maybe this one is in the shadow as well, might have a little more of a darkness here as well. Giving that extra space by doing that, by painting that extra shadow on the tombstone. I've just smudged its width, so just putting it back. Okay, good. So grass is in place. And next, let's plan the color for the Abbey at the back. It's need to be slightly darker than our grass, highlight of the grass, okay? So it's basically slightly darker than the actual ochre background. I don't want to make it too dark. I'm really enjoying seeing the colors of that extra warmth. So I think I'm gonna use my ochre, buff titanium, and some violet to make that unified color. Okay. Now, buff titanium makes the color quite opaque. Ochre and violet could still keep it into that browny color. I'm going to just test it against. Okay, that's quite nice. I'm quite liking that. Now, the lower part of my buildings here going to have more warmth, and the the higher points might have a little bit more coolness. Might use a little bit of ultramarine for it. It will also sit in more darker contrast with the sky. This wall, which is closer to us, will be a tiny bit more darker as well. So if this is the color I'm going to use as my base, I can put tiny bit more darker tones as well and slightly change the color as I go. So first, easier to work around my windows and arches to frame my sky. So while I've got one color as a unifying color, let's work with that. If you wanted to leave some of your ochre background, I think I might do that. It will show little extra highlights if it's possible. I might keep a little bit of it here and there just to show a little bit more exposed, tiny bit of lit up stonework. Maybe that's slightly lighter. Sandstone texture. Okay. A little more something here. Slightly sharper arch silhouette. And the top one will be a little bit more darker, so I'll leave it out. This one could go down. Let's find those narrower openings for the windows. Again, just touching up the borders of the windows first. Okay, maybe leaving a little bit of ochre background here to show some of the inner structure. Okay. And I'm ready to go tiny bit more darker. I'll use, for this wall, I'm going to use a small amount of cadmium red. I think that will make it already darker, or at least different. Maybe a minuscule amount of violet. So it's very, very gently different. I want to see that variety of color, how it's coming close to our wall. Maybe painting the indents of exposed mortar so the stone is standing out a little more. That's quite exciting to work there. And then just a block of color for the wall itself. Okay, again, we can do more details in there. At the moment, I think that will be enough. And I want to have a little bit more violet on my brush. Now, don't want it to be overly dark, so if I'll just press on my brush so the bristles will release any lighter paint I might have had. Okay, and I'm gonna check the color here. Okay, that's a good one. Maybe for the lower part somewhere here. There's some cloisters texture. Anything else a little bit more darker towards the ground? Okay, still haven't decided. I want to have a cooler color for the top of the walls, so I'm still working with my violety sub nuances here. Something darker next to the base of the window. I think it just some of the stone changed color over the time. Got these extra darker patterns. Don't want to zoom in too much, that's why we wanted to see it as a unity there, yeah? So if there are changes, they're very minor, so we don't lose the whole shape. Okay, there's a little change possibly of darkness here as well. And I minor add some dabs, perhaps representing again little varieties. Okay, it's becoming a bit more three-dimensional. Might I need to shape my arch better. Good. Anything darker over the arches. Right, and then I'm gonna go for that cooler color. I'll need some ultramarine. If I'll mix it with my current color, but a little bit on the side of it, it will immediately make everything dark, which we don't want. We want a little bit of darkness, but not much. So I'm going to be back to my buff titanium. If you don't use it, use some white. It's immediately made it very light, so I'm going to be back to ultramarine. And I'm going to mix it with my other browns, with that ochre, that violet, that a little bit of extra color. So it's kind of a bluey gray, violety blue. And I think that would be a good color to be maybe not everywhere, but most of the areas of the shapes here for the tops. And that's when I can make my decisions on how much space we'll leave for the windows. That little extra sharpness for them. If you preserve some of the ochre, that's great. I think mine is getting smudged more than I kind of disappearing more than I wanted, so perhaps I can top it up. Although I think it will be harder to top it up. There's so much paint going in there. Okay, so I'll just focus on my windows first. Just want them to be slightly different. So now they're different in height. Let's just vary them slightly in width. Okay, maybe make this one smaller, narrower. And some of this bluey gray would also move for a couple of more other elements. Small amount of my lighter ochre is coming back. Just want to have a little bit of, there's so many layers to the ruins. They're not just flat surfaces, so that extra light appears in so many different ways. There's building walls closer to us, some of the behind, some of them and different levels. So that just need a little bit more red here. So I just want to have that connection of space showing. I'm quite liking how it's happened here. I think here something is lacking, maybe a little hint of violet, sharpening a couple of corners, and then we'll, because that's my focal point of that interest point, that what our eyes will be searching for, so that's why I'm spending a bit more time on that. Yeah, that's better. It's already, I think that violet with cadmium red make a difference, gives it a little sub contrasts. And I'll simplify some of this here as well. Okay, good. So contrasts within highlights. Okay, that's quite a dark violet, but I think in small quantities it will be fine. And I'm gonna balance it out with something here as well. Good. That's getting more and more exciting. I think I need a little highlight on the side here as well. Maybe that's when I can use my Naples yellow as it comes. And on top of all the layers, might give me just enough light. Yep, and gives that lovely texture as well for that wall. That's it. Okay, that's giving me a really good idea of little extra possible highlights, ideas. Don't know if it's too much. Just uniforming some of those shapes, making them less patchy but more together. Okay, let's stop at that. Good. Checking it's not over breaking that shape. That's it. It's sitting there, but not too sharp, not too bold. Good, 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 good. Right, and now let's have a look at everything else what's left. That's where we come with a bigger brush or sponge or a piece of cloth to work quite quickly. I'm gonna put this brush aside. I'll don't need to wash it. I probably will be using it afterwards as well. Just gonna wipe it. And let's pick up a bigger surface tool. Right, so you have two options now. You can paint all your arch space, what's going to stay darker, with just pure oil, or you can start using color quite diluted. I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to bring some of that fresh oil just on its own, probably where I don't have many lines, so I don't want things to run too much where I've drawn things. But that wet surface will give us transparency. Okay, maybe these are big areas. I can give them a little bit of a layer. You can just about see the change of darkness here, where the surface is a bit wet. The reason for it is I want to use some more transparent layers. So, for example, if I go for cadmium red with quite a bit of oil and start applying it straight away, it will give me a mixture of ochre from the background to with my red. Okay, that's quite exciting. If it's too bright red, we can use a little bit of fresh paint from ochre. Okay, and that will dull it a little bit more, so that combination of runny paint and partially opaque will be wonderful. Okay, just using a big surface brush to do it. If it's too red, to tone it down, we can have a small amount of violet. We'll just bring it slightly more towards the orangey browns. I want you to use big surface. I was thinking of using a sponge. I think I will still use a cloth later, but my brush actually will give me some ideas of how to go around some finer nuances. It's much more easier to do it with a brush surface than a sponge. Now, luckily, somehow I ended up with slightly darker pigment paint on the left-hand side of my brush, and the right and the rest of the brush bristles. They're lighter, so it's giving me a slightly darker, sharper, contrasting border, which is a bit of accident, but it's working really well. Okay, so that's framed it well here. Can place all these ones out. Okay, that runny paint is really wonderful to move about. Right, there's some more of that orangey color somewhere here. Some more of it elsewhere here. Okay, anywhere else that lovely glow? Okay, maybe slightly darker version of it here then. Back to cadmium red and violet. And because it's a already oily surface, it doesn't stay dull. We can manipulate and move the color about. Yeah, let's just place some of that here as well. I think I might put a little bit of that warmth here as well. This doesn't come across as strong as on this wall, but I think it's okay. Okay, again, let's keep increasing my darks from the violet. If the violet will start being more fresher in comparison to the volume of red and ochre, that's all good. I want to start them mingling, mixing as they are, as they come on the surface. Okay. Maybe using those, if we can still see directions. Okay, or we can use a lovely wooden wedge, and on this wet surface, it will be fantastic to scrape and draw things. Okay, just not seeing the right direction, so I just soften it first. And then bring some of these lines in. If you prefer other methods of creating a little bit of line with a palette knife or another brush or something else, it's absolutely fine. This is just suggestions. Okay. That lovely glow. I'm really enjoying that lovely glow. Okay, tiny bit more orange and cadmium red. I actually haven't used my magenta, my ruby, my pinky red. But if I don't end up using it, that will be fine as well. I think I could use it with some of the colors I'm mixing now. Okay, good. If some of the paint will start running, this one started to run, well, I'm going just to let it be and let it run. Right, so these are my warmer colors, and I'm going to start bringing some cooler ones now as well. Just tiny bit more. Working with my wooden wedge, working with my brush, smudging things. Okay. This one could go just tiny bit up, and then we'll start changing its color. Okay, that's good. Right, and the next, I'm going to clean my brush just by wiping it. I don't need to clean it totally. but my next color is going to be more fresher violet. Okay, which whatever left is on my brush from the browns. So will look already slightly cooler on its own, and a small amount of ultramarine. If it will be too dark, like we had it for the backdrop of the Abbey, I use tiny bit of buff titanium or a little bit of white just to bring it back to the less dark tone, but I need my violet back. Okay, and I'm going to apply that, and look at that. Ochre background is coming through beautifully here. So I can do little dabs to represent stone, can do more independent shapes sometimes using the cloth and almost creating, okay, I need more paint for that, creating little dabs, little pressed marks. Need to create more volume of paint for that. Okay. Okay, still my cloth is not picking up as much color as I want, so I might persevere with my brush. Brush picks a little more paint. Well, it's not so much picks it, I think it's actually leaves lovely marks together here. So that's a cooler surface coming in together. I'm going to block everything which is still plain ochre here. And then touch things up with little extra tones like we've done in our sketch. Okay, and it's in here. So if we spend a lot of time doing accurate drawing for the column, it disappears. So I always want to bear in mind not to overthink it at the early stages. Right, this is quite nice. Anything else more? I think the rest could be done with a smaller brush. There's a little bit of a step here or something, just a little shadow showing from on that surface. Right, and my shadow, that's what I nearly forgotten. My shadow from under the column. I think something similar in color, just a block will work well. Okay, and perhaps even a similar colors. Could be a slightly darker version of it. A little bases of the column here. Larger brush, a little harder to handle. So perhaps leaving the nuances to a smaller brush or something we can scratch the surface with. Okay. Okay, and again, these are just little suggestions. I'm gonna try not to overwork them because they can look a bit too busy. If you've got too sharp edges, maybe use a finger cloth or smaller brush just to make them part of that surface more than lose that exciting stone wall. I think that's better. There's very thin layers here for me. Right, I'm going to pick up that brush I used before and I'm going to top up some darknesses. I quite like some of these darkness here, the violet. I think that's all I need to do is to top that one up from a fresh violet, possibly violet and a bit of red. And it will mingle with the colors we have. So darker, right, it's gonna have to have stronger pigment because it's very runny surface, so it's not gonna sit too well unless it's a thicker pigment. Oh, lovely. I think that's where the pink might come in here as well. A very exciting darkness. A little block. That shadow's coming in. Okay, I might need to stand up so I see that surface a little better. Okay, a bit more paint. Okay, it's quite dark, so I'm just going to distribute it a little bit more. It doesn't look like similar size brush strokes. But more the tone. Okay, maybe something a little bit more here in the middle. Good. Any other shadows? Remember we found some more here on the side. Through the mortar of the stone. If it's not dark enough, you can use a little bit of ultramarine. So working through color for the depth. Good. I need a little bit of darker border here to balance it as well. All these suggestive lines of the archways, they could remain more suggestive rather than precise. Columns. I might keep it a little more lost. Mixes really well on an oily surface. Can increase the darkness here just in the corner. Okay. There's a little more of a shadow here as well. Kind of follows, maybe there was a doorway, maybe there was a sort of ledge. Kind of follows the stones. Good, that's quite natural. Anything else here? Just a little bit plain corner here, so that's good here now. Anything else? I think this could go slightly darker to offset. Good, good, good. I've lost the particulars of the ends of the columns here, which I can see in the photo, but I've lost it here. It's kind of mingled. It looks like deliberately, maybe something broken, maybe it doesn't quite highlight what those shapes might be. So I think I'm gonna keep it more suggestive. Is it here and there? Is it here and there? Maybe something else broken down, maybe something been patched up. I think that's all good. Tiny bit more of a sharper edge here. Just tweaking anything else I need to do. Perhaps a little bit of light for the column here. I'm gonna have a play. If it's too much, I can always remove it. I think that might be something to consider. Not too light, a bit of smudged it down. Again, just suggestion on that column's space there. Is it bulking out too much now? And I wanted perhaps minuscule amount of extra light on this wall for highlights with Naples yellow. Right, let's pick up a fresh brush, couple of more strokes, and I'm going to stop. Fresh Naples yellow, a little more. Yes, it does make a difference. I wasn't sure if I'll need it, but I think that will make that final shine and attraction to the painting through this wall. Don't have to do it all the way through. Maybe I'll just focus maybe more on the mortar, maybe almost bring it to this light here. Okay, it just separates extra stones, makes them stand out a bit more separately. Okay, that's good. And I'm happy to stop. That's all good. That's all good. Just double checking. Yeah, I'm happy to stop with as how it is. I haven't put any green. Right, one more tiny little mark for the green behind the arch. Tiny bit more green. But if they would have been left without the green, looks like some sort of just ruins over ruins behind. But I think putting a little bit of green, maybe that green and ochre and tiny bit of violet just to make it slightly darker. That's it. Okay, now I'm definitely going to stop. Thank you very much for painting alongside to me tonight. I hope you had fun, especially last 15-20 minutes on that lovely runny surface. Makes the whole painting very much alive. And I look forward to see your paintings. Thank you.